The massive view screen aboard the Alliance flagship Star Seeker displayed a terrifying sight. Thousands of red dots representing Domain Empire warships surrounded the Sentry system, the last major stronghold of the Alliance of stellar species. Admiral Ray, a tall BL-skinned alien with 4 arms, watched in silence as more enemy ships appeared by the minute. "Sir, we've lost contact with our outer defense stations," reported his second-in-command. "The Domain fleet is moving into attack formation." Ray's lower hands grip the command chair tightly. 3 years of endless war had pushed the Alliance to its breaking point. Their weapons were no match for the Domain's superior shields, and their defenses crumbled against the Empire's devastating energy weapons. "How many civilian ships have made it through the evacuation corridor?" Ray asked, his voice heavy with concern. "Less than half, Admiral. The Domain is closing in fast. At their current speed, they'll be in firing range of the planet in 6 hours. Ray knew this might be the Alliance's final stand. Their remaining fleet of 800 ships was badly outgunned by the Domain's force of over 5,000 warships. The math was simple. They were doomed. "Send the emergency broadcast again," Ray ordered, "on all frequencies, including the old ones. Perhaps someone will hear us this time." The message shot out across space, carrying the Alliance's desperate plea for help unknown to Ray. At the very edge of human space, that signal would change everything. Admiral James Stone stood on the observation deck of Earth's Orbital Command, staring at the holographic projection of the distress call. After 2 centuries of isolation, humanity had built up the most advanced fleet in known space. Their ships carried weapons and defenses that would seem like magic to other species. "The Council has made their decision, sir," said his aide, walking onto the deck with a data tablet. Stone turned around, his weathered face showing both concern and determination. "And they've approved the intervention. The entire Third Fleet is yours to command, all 2,500 ships." Stone nodded slowly. Humanity had watched from the shadows as the Domain Empire expanded, crushing one species after another. They had prepared for this day, building weapons specifically designed to counter Domain technology. "Send the activation codes to all shipyards," Stone commanded. "I want every ship ready for jump in 3 hours. It's time to show the galaxy that attacking peaceful species has consequences." Back in the Sentry system, the Domain Fleet's Supreme Commander laughed at the Alliance's desperate broadcasts. His massive flagship, merely the size of a small moon, led the attack formation. "Look at them beg," he said to his bridge crew. "Send out the demand for unconditional surrender. When they refuse, we'll demonstrate our new planet killer weapon on their capital world." A junior officer suddenly straightened up at his monitoring station. "Supreme Commander, we're detecting unusual energy readings at the edge of the system. Probably some malfunction from their failing equipment." The commander dismissed. "Nothing can stop us now. Our victory is." His words were cut short as space itself seemed to tear open. Through dozens of massive portals emerged ships unlike anything the Domain had ever seen. Their sleek, dark hulls seemed to absorb light itself, and their size dwarfed even the Domain's largest vessels. "Unknown fleet, identify yourself," the Domain commander demanded, a hint of worry creeping into his voice for the first time in years. A response came immediately, broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Domain language. "This is Admiral James Stone of the United Earth Federation. You are ordered to cease your attack on the Alliance and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning." The Domain commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ships have positioned themselves perfectly to cut off his fleet's retreat path. But surely these newcomers couldn't possibly challenge the mighty Domain Empire, could they? He was about to find out just how wrong he was. The Domain commander's laughter echoed through his bridge. "One morning you dare threaten the Domain Empire." He turned to his weapons officer. "Show these humans what real power looks like." Target their largest ship, the Domain flagship's main cannon, charged up its purple energy beam, glancing out toward the human fleet. The Alliance forces watched in horror, expecting to see the unknown human ship torn apart. Instead, something impossible happened. The beam hit an invisible barrier around the human flagship Thunderchild and simply vanished. No explosion, no shield flare. The energy just disappeared. Captain Tom Walker stood calmly on the Thunderchild bridge, a slight smile on his face. "Energy absorption fields working at 100%, he reported to Admiral Stone. "Their main weapon just recharged our batteries to full capacity." Stone's voice came back over the command channel. All ships execute Battle Plan Alpha show them. What Earth can do, the human fleet moved with impossible precision. Their dark halls began to glow with lines of blue energy as weapon systems powered up 2 centuries of preparation were about to pay off. Impossible, the domain commander shouted as his tactical display lit up with warnings. His sensors couldn't lock onto the human ships. Their stealth systems made them appear to be in multiple places. At once, the first shot from a human vessel taught the domain empire a harsh lesson in humility. A small human destroyer fired what looked like a tiny bolt of green light. When it hit a domain heavy cruiser, the entire shields collapsed instantly. A second shot cut the massive vessel in half. What kind of weapons are these? The domain weapons officer screamed, panic in his voice. Nothing had ever penetrated their shields so easily. The answer came in the form of more green bolts. Each human ship targeted multiple domain vessels. Their shots ignored shields, completely disabled engines, and cut through the strongest armor like it was paper. In the Alliance flagship, Admiral Ray washed in amazement. "Are you recording this?" he asked his crew. "Every second of it." His sensor officer nodded, all 4 hands working frantically. "Sir, the human ships are using technology we've never seen before. Their weapons, they're somehow unmaking matter at the quantum level. And their defenses, they're not just blocking the domain's attacks, they're absorbing the energy." The battle quickly turned into a demonstration of Earth's military superiority. Human ships moved in perfect formation, their computers predicting and countering every domain tactic before it could be executed. When the domain ships tried to jump away, they found their engines wouldn't respond. "Engine shut down, field activated," reported Captain Walker aboard the Thunderchild. "They're not going anywhere." The domain commander bridge descended into chaos. As more systems failed, their mighty weapons were useless. Their unbeatable shields meant nothing, and their vast numerical advantage was worthless against an enemy they couldn't even hit. "This is Admiral Stone to domain forces." The transmission cut through their panic. "Your engines have been disabled. Your weapons are ineffective. You have 2 choices: surrender immediately, or we will be forced to demonstrate our full combat capabilities." The domain commander gripped his chair, pride wearing with survival instinct. "We will never." A single shot from the Thunderchild silenced him. The bolt passed through his flagship's bridge, vaporizing in a perfect cylinder straight through the massive ship without detonating it. A warning shot that could have just as easily taken out the entire vessel. "Perhaps," the commander said slowly, "we should consider the human offer." Admiral Stone allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had revealed less than 10% of their true capabilities, and already the mighty domain fleet was ready to surrender. 200 years of watching, learning, and preparing had created an insurmountable technological gap. The real question was, how would the galaxy react when they learned just how powerful humanity had become, while the domain fleet hung powerless in space? The Alliance Council gathered in their emergency bunker deep beneath the Sentry systems. Capital City 12 representatives from different species sat around a circular table, watching live feeds of the human ships. "They could have destroyed us just as easily as they defeated the domain," said the reptilian counselor, scales shifting colors with anxiety. "Why would such a powerful species help us?" Their discussion halted as a new hologram appeared above the table. Admiral Stone's image stood before them, his uniform neat and posture straight. "Honorable Council, I request permission to land and discuss terms of friendship between our peoples." The council members looked at each other nervously. The head counselor, an elderly being with crystalline skin, spoke first. "Permission granted, Admiral. We will meet you at the Central Spaceport." The human shuttle descended through the atmosphere with grace, its dark hull reflecting the system's twin suns. Captain Walker stood beside Admiral Stone, watching the alien city grow larger through the view screen. "Beautiful architecture," Walker commented, noting the spiral towers and floating platforms. "Hard to believe the domain almost destroyed all this." Stone nodded. "That's why we finally came out of isolation. We couldn't watch another civilization fall." He turned to the diplomatic team behind them. "Remember, we show strength, but not aggression. Earth wants allies, not subjects." The shuttle landed softly on a massive platform, where the Alliance Council waited. As the ramp lowered, both sides got their first close look at each other. The Alliance members were struck by how ordinary the humans appeared after witnessing their godlike technology. They had expected beings of pure energy or towering giants. Instead, they saw people who looked almost plain dressed in simple dark uniforms with minimal decoration. "Welcome to Century Prime," the crystal-skinned counselor said, raising all four hands in their traditional greeting. "We owe you." An immeasurable debt. Stone smiled warmly. "Earth extends its hand in friendship. We've watched your people for many years, admiring your peaceful cooperation and cultural exchanges. The domain's aggression could not be allowed to destroy that." Meanwhile, aboard Thunderchild, the crew monitored the captured domain fleet. Walker's second in command, Lieutenant Smith, noticed something on her sensors, or she called to Walker over the comm. "Three domain battleships just appeared at the system's edge. They're not responding to any signals." The new domain ships charged their weapons, clearly unaware of what had happened to their main fleet. Their commanders had probably expected to find a victory celebration, not their entire fleet held helpless by unknown vessels. Walker sighed. "Send them the standard warning. If they fire, disable their ships. Try not to damage them too much. They'll make good practice targets for the Alliance's fleet once we upgrade their weapons." The warning went out, but the domain ships pressed forward. Their crews were about to learn the same harsh lesson as their comrades back on the planet's surface. Admiral Stone shared recordings of Earth's long journey to this moment. The Alliance Council watched in amazement as they saw humans rebuilding their civilization after ancient wars, reaching for the stars, and then choosing isolation to prepare for this very day. "We knew the domain would eventually threaten peace in this sector," Stone explained. "So we watched, learned, and developed countermeasures for every weapon and tactic they had. But we needed the right moment to reveal ourselves." The Crystal Counselor's surface sparkled with emotion. "But why help us? You could have let our civilizations fall and taken the galaxy for yourselves." Stone's answer was simple but profound. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that true strength comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. We don't want to rule the galaxy, we want to help protect it." As if to emphasize his words, a flash lit up the sky as the Thunderchild effortlessly disabled the three domain battleships that had just arrived. The message was clear: humanity had arrived, and the rules of the game had changed forever. 3 days after the initial contact, Admiral Stone gathered his fleet commanders aboard the Thunderchild. The holographic display showed hundreds of domain supply lines stretching across the galaxy like red veins. "The domain thinks they only lost a single fleet," Stone explained, pointing to key routes. "They don't know we can strike anywhere anytime. Today, we show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." Captain Walker studied the supply lines. "Their fuel convoys are most vulnerable here in the Orient sector. No major fleet presence, minimal defenses." Exactly, Stone expanded the map. "The domain ships need specialized fuel for their engines. Without it, their fleets are just floating metal." Walker, "You'll lead the first strike." The domain supply base in the Orange sector was massive, a sprawling space station surrounded by fuel tankers and cargo ships. Its commander watched his boring shift Dragon, unaware that everything was about to change. Sensors operator looked up from his station. "Sir, getting some strange readings. Might be a sensor malfunction." Space ripple. This 30 human ships appeared, their dark hulls seeming to drink in the starlight. The Thunder Shell led the formation, its weapons already charged. "Attention, domain forces." Walker's voice bounded across all channels. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is not a negotiation." The domain commander laughed. "A mere 30 ships against our station. We have over 200 defense vessels. All ships destroy these foolish humans." Walker sighed. "They never learn. All ships execute pattern Delta, target their weapons first, then engines. No unnecessary destruction." The human fleet split into smaller groups, moving with impossible precision. Domain ships fired wildly, their shots either missing completely or being absorbed by the human vessels. "Energy field." Sir, Walker's weapons officer called out. "They are launching their new guided torpedoes." "Perfect." Walker smiled. "Deploy the control field." A wave of invisible energy pulsed from the human ships. Every domain torpedo stopped mid-flight, then turned around and flew back to their launchers. The resulting explosions disabled dozens of domain ships, without the humans firing a single shot. The station commander watched in horror as his defense fleet fell apart. Human vessels danced between his ships, their green energy beams slicing through shields and disabling weapons with surgical precision. Not a single shot was wasted. Every blast hit exactly where intended. "How?" he whispered as the Thunderchild approached his station. "How are they doing this?" The answer came as human Marines teleported directly onto his bridge, their armor making them look like dark ghosts. The station's crew raised their hands, immediately having heard stories of battle 3 days ago back in Alliance space. Admiral Rye watched the reports coming in with amazement. The humans had just captured the largest domain supply base, without losing a single ship or crew member. Even more impressive, they had disabled the entire defense fleet, without destroying a single vessel. Their precision is unbelievable, his tactical officers said. Look at these scans. They disabled 200 ships, and there's barely any structural damage. Shot hit exactly where they aimed, Ray nodded. And this was just 30 ships. Imagine what their entire fleet could do. A new report flashed on his screen. Similar strikes were happening across domain. Space supply lines were being cut, communication bases captured, and defensive fleets disabled. The domain's mighty empire fire was being systematically dismantled by an enemy. They couldn't even fight back against. Captain Walker stood on the captured station bridge. Review. Mission data: all objectives completed, minimal damage to infrastructure, 0 casualties on either side, and the entire fuel depot secured. He opened a channel to Admiral Stone. Sir, first strike successful. The domain's about to learn that their aggressive expansion has finally hit a wall. A human wall. Stone's reply was simple, but carried the weight of humanity's new role in the galaxy. Well done, Captain. Now let's show them what happens when they threaten peace in our part of space. The message was spreading across the stars. Humanity had arrived, and the domain's days of unchallenged power were over. The domain's Supreme War Council, gathered in their hidden fortress deep within their home system, holograms showed the devastating losses of the past week. 50 major supply bases captured, 300 defense fleets disabled, and all without a single ship destroyed. How are they predicting our every move? The High General slammed his fist on the table. It's like they've been studying us for centuries. A quiet voice finished. All eyes turned to their chief scientist. Reports say they isolated themselves 200 years ago. They weren't hiding, they were preparing. The council chamber arrived, upped in angry shouts, but fell silent as their emperor's hologram appeared. Enough, deploy the reserve fleet, all of it. I want these humans wiped out, whatever the cost. Aboard the Thunderchild, Captain Walker watched his 5,000 domain warships emerge from hyperspace. The massive fleet formed a wall of metal across space, thousands of kilometers wide. They've committed their entire reserve fleet. His tactical officer reported. This is everything they have left. Walker opened a channel to Admiral Stone. Sir, looks like they're finally taking us seriously. Indeed, Stone's voice was calm. Time to show them why. That's a mistake. Execute operation checkmate. Walker smiled. All ships battle formation. Echo, let's show them what we learned from their training exercises. The domain fleet charged forward, weapons blazing. This time, they had studied the human ship's movements and adjusted their targeting. Their admiral smiled as the first volley approached the human fleet and passed right through them. Holograms. The domain admiral screamed, find the real ships. The real human fleet appeared behind the domain formation, having used their advanced stealth systems to slit through the gaps. Before the domain could react, waves of energy pulses swept through their ranks, shutting down engines and weapons. But the domain had one last trick. Their ships suddenly split apart, each vessel breaking into 3 smaller ones. Behold our greatest secret, their admiral broadcast. Our ships were designed to subdivide. You may disable some, but you'll never stop them all. Walker watched calmly as the domain fleet tripled in size. Interesting design. He commented, too bad we already knew about it. He turned to his crew. Deploy the gravity nets. Invisible fields of artificial gravity activated between the human ships, creating a web that caught the domain vessels like fish in a net. The smaller ships, lacking the stabilizers of their combined forms, were even more vulnerable to human technology. In Alliance space, Admiral Ray led a fleet of newly upgraded Alliance ships. The humans had shared some of their basic technology, enough to give their allies a fighting chance, and domain reinforcements detected. His sensor officer reported they're trying to flank the human fleet. Ray straightened in his chair. Not this time. All ships attack pattern. Human 7, show them what we've learned from our new friends. The Alliance ships moved with new confidence, their upgraded weapons slicing through domain shields. It wasn't as elegant as the human attacks, but it was effective. The battle reached its climax. CLX as the domain fleet realized they were trapped between human technology and newly empowered Alliance forces their smaller ships try to escape only to find every route blocked by gravity fields or precision fire. Domain Fleet Walker. Broadcast. Your subdividing ships are impressive, but we've had 2 centuries to think of counters to every possible tactic surrender. Now the Domain Admiral watched his mighty fleet hanging helpless in space. Every strategy had failed, every secret weapon had been countered before it could be used. The humans hadn't just beaten them, they had outfought them at every turn. We swallowed his pride, we surrender. As Alliance ships moved in to secure the captured vessels, Walker sent a private message to Admiral Stone. Sir, I think it's time for the final push. The Domain's running out of cards to play. Stone's response was brief, but determined. Agreed, prepare for the end game. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how humanity would end this war. They'd spent centuries preparing to fight. The Domain Emperor's personal fortress world floated in space, surrounded by the last remains of their once mighty military. 3,000 ships formed a defensive sphere around the massive artificial planet, their crews nervous but determined inside the fortress. The Emperor watched tactical displays with growing fear. They're coming, aren't they? His advisor nodded silently. Long-range sensors had detected the combined human Alliance fleet approaching. But this time something was different. The human ships weren't trying to hide. Admiral Stone stood on the Thunderchild bridge beside Captain Walker. The command deck was silent, except for the soft hum of equipment on the main screen. The Domain fortress grew larger. They got nowhere left to run. Walker observed every supply line cut, every outpost captured, every fleet disabled. Stone nodded. And now they'll see what happens when we stop playing nice. All ships' battle stations load the real weapons. Throughout the human fleet, hidden weapon ports opened for the first time. Devices that had remained dormant for centuries hummed to life. The Domain was about to learn that everything they'd seen so far had been humanity fighting with one hand high behind its back. The Domain Admiral watched in confusion as the human fleet approached without any attempt at stealth or deception. They're being careless. All ships prepare to. His words died as his sensors screamed warnings. The energy readings from the human ships had just increased 100-fold by the SDS. His sensor officer shouted, those weapons they've been using, they were just their training weapons. All ships execute final protocol. Stone's voice was calm, but carried absolute authority. Show them what Earth can really do. The human fleet moved as one. Ships that had seemed dark now blazed with power, their hulls glowing with contained energy. When they fired, there were no small green beams. This time, massive waves of golden energy swept out, passing through the Domain shields like they didn't exist. Ship caught in the beams simply stopped existing, not destroyed, but erased at the quantum level. Impossible. The Domain Emperor watched as 1,000 ships vanished in seconds. How long have they had this capability? The whole time. His advisor whispered, everything before this was them being merciful. The Alliance fleet, led by Admiral Ray, struck from the opposite side. Their ships, now equipped with basic versions of human technology, tore through the remaining Domain defenses. Look at those human weapons, Rai said in awe. They could have ended this war in minutes on the first day. His second-in-command nodded. They held back because they wanted to give the Domain a chance to surrender without being obliterated. They were being kind. Walker directed the Thunderchild through the chaos, leading the strike team toward the fortress world's main docking bay. Admiral, we're in position for the final strike. Proceed. Captain Stone replied, and the Thunderchild new weapons carved a clean path through the fortress's outer defenses. Domain guns fired desperately, but couldn't even scratch the human ship's true shields. This is Captain Walker to all Domain forces within the fortress. His voice echoed through every speaker. Communication device, your fleet is gone. Your defenses are useless. Surrender now, or we be forced to demonstrate our planet cracker weapons inside the fortress. The Emperor looked at his tactical display. Second-third of his remaining fleet had vanished in minutes. The humans had weapons that could erase matter from existence, and based on their energy readings, they even using full power. Open a channel, he ordered, his voice shaking. Tell them we surrender unconditionally. As Walker's strike team boarded the fortress, he sent a final message to Stone. Mission accomplished, Admiral. The war is over. Stone looked out at the battlefield, where the mighty Domain fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors in minutes. No, Captain, the peace is just beginning. 1 month after the Domain surrender, representatives from every spacefaring species gathered on Earth for the first time in history. Aliens walked through the streets of New Washington, marveling at the perfect blend of nature and technology, that humans had achieved. The domain emperor, now stripped of his powers, stood before the United Earth Council. His once magnificent robes had been replaced by simple diplomatic attire. Admiral Stone and Captain Walker washed from their seats as he signed the final peace treaty. "We formally acknowledge our crimes against the galaxy," the former emperor spoke, his voice carrying across the silent chamber, "and we accept Earth's terms for reconstruction and disarmament." The head of the Earth Council nodded. "Your people will not be punished for their leaders' mistakes. Humanity will help rebuild the domain worlds into something better." Aboard the Thunderchild, Walker showed Admiral Ree around the ship's true capabilities. The Alliance commander stared in wonder at technology centuries ahead of anything he'd imagined. "Those weapons we gave the Alliance," Walker explained, "they were just the beginning. We'll help all peaceful species advance, but gradually making sure the power is used wisely." Rye touched a wall panel, watching it respond to his thoughts. "You could have conquered us all. Why help us instead?" Walker smiled. "Because Earth learned long ago that real strength isn't about conquest, it's about protection, about lifting others up." In the domain's former fortress world, now converted into a galactic peace center, Admiral Stone met with the Alliance Council. Holograms showed ships from all species working together to rebuild damaged worlds. "The quarantine zones around dangerous weapons research have been established," Stone reported, "and our terraforming fleets have started repairing planets damaged in the war." The crystal-skinned counselor sparkled with emotion. "Humanity continues to amaze us. You win a war, then spend your resources helping everyone, even your former enemies. It's what we do," Stone replied. "Simply, Earth spent centuries preparing not just to win a war, but to build a lasting peace back on Earth." In a quiet garden outside the council chambers, the domain's former chief scientist met with human researchers. They showed him plans for clean energy, advanced medicine, and sustainable terraforming. "All this time," he said, examining the designs, "we thought we were the most advanced species, but you were so far ahead that you could afford to be kinda human." Scientist patted his shoulder. "We had good teachers. Our own history showed us that advancement without wisdom leads to destruction. That's why we waited, watched, and prepared to do things right." 6 months later, Captain Walker stood on the Thunderchild observation deck, watching ships from a dozen species training together in Earth's new defensive fleet. The domain's former warships, now repurposed for peaceful missions, worked alongside Alliance and human vessels. "Status report." Admiral Stone's hologram appeared beside him. Walker smiled. "The Galactic Defense Network is online. Former domain worlds are recovering well. The Alliance species have adapted to their new technology responsibly. And there hasn't been a single act of war in known space for 6 months. A new record." Stone nodded approvingly. Earth's long wait paid off, not just in victory, but in building something better. Speaking of building, Walker turned to his old friend. "The Council approved our expansion plans. We start building the first intergalactic exploration fleet next month." "Excellent." Stone's hologram looked out at the stars. "After all, there's whole universe out there. And this time we'll explore it together as a united galaxy." Walker watched a group of young officers, human Alliance and former domain, training together on a nearby vessel. "You know what the best part is, sir?" "What's that, Captain?" "We didn't just end a war, we started a new age of peace. And this time it'll last." As the sun set on Earth, ships from across the galaxy flew in formation, their crews no longer divided by species or past conflicts. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not just as warriors, but as teachers, protectors, and guides toward a better future. The gain wasn't just over, a new one had begun.